Hello. If you think this episode is one of those, hey, are you a nihilist? Are you sad? Is the meaningless of it all getting to you a bit? Then become a Muslim type video, you are mistaken.
I am?
Yes. When people see the term nihilism mentioned in reference to Islam, certain images may come to mind. On the other hand, there's also an implication that nihilism is a purely Western idea that's never been present anywhere else in the world. So in this video, we'll go through the concept of annihilation, or Fanā in Islamic traditions, have a dash of mysticism here and there, and a little bit of poetry, because, well, we want to. The common narrative in Islam's relation to nihilism is often made by the images and the accounts we see and hear. The thirst for annihilation justified in terms of religious redemption. So when rational actor theorists see violence conducted in the name of Islam, a religion deemed to be outside the realm of the secular bubble, a dichotomy appears. The reasoned and modern person who thinks critically about how to conduct themselves versus the individual who has a faith-based ideology, something that supposedly numbs their critical faculties. So when these theorists read a term such as annihilation in Islamic texts, it only strengthens the supposed connection between Islamic absolutism and violence. So, when Muslim scholars such as Muhammed Iqbal write that the intellect, aql or reason, is an inferior form or method of acquiring knowledge in relation to that which is acquired by the qalb or the heart, then talks about the annihilation of the self may reinforce this idea because such terms require some context. Without such a context, these accounts don't see the idea of Islamic nihilism as a collapse of metaphysics or whatever, but as an intrinsic feature of Islam's apocalyptic vision. As Mustapha Kamal Pasha in his article Nihilism and the Otherness of Islam writes, a staple of Orientalist scholarship, essentialism extends to all domains of Islamic thought and practice, including the assumed elective affinity between Islam and violence, or the nexus between Islam's apocalyptic vision and propensity for self-annihilation. A major implication of this radical volte-face in the restrictive meaning of nihilism relative to Islamic alterity is that it obviates the need to interrogate themes of nothingness or annihilation within Islamic philosophy, metaphysics, or mysticism. So, let's do that. The term Fanā means annihilation. In Farsi, when we say Befana raft, it usually means they got destroyed. But in spiritual terms, this annihilation means to die in God. It's the moment of ecstasy many have recounted as an experience where you lose your self while dissolving into the oneness of God, shedding the illusory nature of the self, or the I, and the dunya, the world. Now I know what you're thinking, or maybe thinking. You can find this example in Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and a whole lot of idis and isms. Buddhism, for example, sees desire as the cause of suffering. The extinguishing of desire, nirvana, releases the person from the cycle of rebirth, samsara. Terms such as dunya, Babylon, Maya, samsara all hint at the illusory and empty nature of the world, that big zero we all chase. Your eyes see something, desire rises in you, and you chase the something. Once you reach the something, its allure suddenly disappears, and you are driven to the chase once again. This inspired much of Schopenhauer's thinking, which Nietzsche refers to as a will to nothingness. Schopenhauer wrote on this will in the following way: its desires are unlimited, its claims inexhaustible, and every satisfied desire gives birth to a new one. No possible satisfaction in the world could suffice to still its craving. set a final goal to its demands, and fill the bottomless pit of its heart. Or in the eternal words of Livia Soprano,
it's all a big nothing.
So, on the surface of things, the concept of annihilation and extinction might seem similar, but while for the Buddhist, the aim of extinction is to negate desire in order to alleviate suffering, that is, entering back into the cycle of rebirth, Fanā is an annihilation in order to achieve something. It is not a will to nothingness. In order to highlight this point, I want to recite a poem which is the chorus of the track Dide va Dil, translation The Scene and the Heart, by Hichgas Reveal and Bidad, produced by Mahdi Arajani. ز دست دیده و دل هر دو فریاد که هرچه دیده بیند دل کند یاد بسازم خنجری نیشش ز فولاد زنم بر دیده تا دل گردد آزاد. Now you might be thinking, maybe, that this seems to be in line with Buddhist notions of extinction. Relinquish desire in order to ascend. You could even interpret it from a Nietzschean perspective. In the slave morality narrative, those who cannot have are doomed to moralize their own lack. Thus, to dagger the eyes is to make virtue of the inability for their will to achieve their desires. This ascension is framed as, so my heart may roam free. But this freedom is not freedom from desire for the sake of alleviating suffering. This is where the notion of Baqā comes in.
Whoa, wait a second. How'd you say that again?
Baqā.
Baqā.
Baqā. Baqā literally means survival or subsistence. The state after Fanā where you remain and reintegrate yourself into the world, but not as the self that came before. You don't leave the world behind. A key Quranic reference is, everything upon the earth is undergoing annihilation, but there subsists the face of your Lord. In the book called The Conference of the Birds, which is written by Attar, talking birds discuss various things. Each bird represents various human attitudes and follies. In many of the stories, the theme of some sort of discontent or nihilistic yearnings are very much evident. The loss of loved ones, fears around death, fears around how to cope with life. And in each instance, the cure is given in trust towards God and His remembrance, but specifically how this very pain or suffering is an opportunity at a form of removal, or rather, a form of death. But not to the zero, which is what Schopenhauer refers to, but a yearning to be zero.